Welcome back, everybody, to more from the Stabilize. I'm here today with Blake. How's it going, Blake?
Only well, thanks, Mitch.
That is good, and today we are looking at our first look at World Championships decks. The new format has thrown up a few curveballs, missing things like Ultra Ball and DCE, and the ever-present Zoroark GX means that we're going to need to think up some new lists. And the first cab off of the rank for us is going to be Pikachu Zekrom. It seems to be one of, if not the most powerful Pokemon in the format at the moment, and we figured it's probably not a bad place to start with a list. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's with the addition of Electromagnetic Radar. It seemed a bit excessive at the time when we first got it because we still had Nest Ball and Ultra Ball, but now that we've lost it, it's a bloody good thing that we've got it now because Pikachu Zekrom is one of the few decks in the format that has an enjoyable amount of Pokemon search.
Yeah, we can actually search some Pokemon out. Our first two Pokemon in the list that we've been testing, we've got 2 copies of Pikachu Zekrom. This card obviously has a lot of power, and it's going to be our main attacker for most of our Worlds tournament, if we choose to play it in that particular event. It's got all of the things that you could want. It's got lots of attacking potential, it accelerates energy, and Tag Bolt GX also has the option to take multiple prizes. Seems like a good option.
Yeah, this card's super powerful. I mean, it took the meta by storm when it came in, and like you can obviously see why. The only thing that that threatens this card now is the fact that we have Bench Barrier Mew in format, and not a lot of Gust in the format to kill that Mew on the bench with something like a Zapdos, but I think it's strong enough to overcome those issues.
Yeah, it ought to be able to do it. It also has the support of 2 copies of Zeraora GX. For those who don't know, Thunderclap Zone means that your Pokemon that have electric energy attached have no retreat cost, means that everything in the deck moves around pretty easily. And Plasma Fist is a decent backup attack if you require it. Another solid inclusion to help yourself with some attacking.
Yeah, it's the perfect support card. I mean, it helps everything flow smoothly. It removes the need for extra cards like Switch and stuff like that, especially in this format where status conditions might come back and getting trapped in the active might become a dreadful thing. Thunderclap Zone rescues you, and now there's no Alola Muck to stop these useful abilities from being exploited fully, so I expect to see more and more of this card going forward.
Yeah, it ought to be pretty good. We also have 3 kind of one prize attackers that we're going to include in the list. We'll run through the support Pokemon in a moment, but we have 1 copy of Zeraora from our last expansion in Unbroken Bonds. This card is a really, really cool idea, and the good thing about it is, since there's no Guzma and there's a lack of Gust, you can kind of power up Discharge on the bench quite easily and end up doing a lot of damage. Discharge does 50 times all of the lightning energy attached from this Pokemon, and then you discard them. So it does 50 damage for each of them. You can easily get up to 250, and people aren't going to be able to take it out on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the big weaknesses, and one prize attackers are going to be even more of a luxury now that you can't just Guzma around them and get to the big juicy prizes. So now people are going to have to deal with these threats, and there's more and more of these big ones coming up every set.
There certainly are. We also have 1 copy of Old School Thunderous Assault Zapdos. Even though Guzma is gone, the card still remains powerful. With Zeraora GX, it can get into the active quite easily. Thunderous Assault for 80 damage is not a bad number. Especially with Electro Power, you can knock out some little basics that get stuck in your opponent's active. It's also a pretty good choice.
I mean, regardless of whether or not we lose Guzma, this card is still a really effective 1 prize attacker. As long as, like you said, Thunderclap Zone's active, this card's going to be able to do what it wants to do. This deck still plays switching cards as well, so reactivating it with like 1 copy of it in the same turn is still going to be possible, and yeah, it's going to be able to trade up against other GXs.
Certainly will. Another one of the 1 prize attackers that we run is the new Xurkitree that's come out of our Unifying Minds set. Like all Ultra Beasts, it has a attack that interacts with the prize cards, and this one, I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's pretty much Sledgehammer from the old Baby Buzzwole 30 plus 90 if you are on 3 prizes, I believe.
Your opponent.
Your opponent, there you go.
So the same as Buzzle, just 3 instead of 4.
Yeah, so a pretty solid attacker on specific turns can do 120, and then with Electro Charge you can get up to 150 or 180 Electro Power. I say Electro Charge every time. I have no idea why that happens. But yes, you can get up to 180 quite easily. Our attackers, though, are only going to be as good as the support that's around them. Did you want to add anything about circuitry, Blake, whilst we were there?
I was just going to say that it's kind of the perfect like Ultra Beast interaction too, because you know, usually one of the Pokemon you first go in with this deck is Pikachu Zekrom, and if they take one out, they immediately go down to 3 prize cards. So now you like can immediately answer with a circuitry for 1 energy if they take out if you for some reason loaded up all 6 energy onto your Pikachu Zekrom, you can come back with this for 1 energy and do 120, possibly more with Electro Powers. So you can be threatening at almost every part of the game now.
Yeah, it's pretty good, and we can also threaten with lots of support Pokemon as well. We need to be able to set these fellows up, and we can get ourselves some nice cards into play to support them. Tapu Koko Prism is a obvious choice. Being able to attach energy and accelerate it from the discard is incredibly good, and I don't think you'd actually be able to play Pikarom effectively without it.
No, I mean, you pretty much lost any game where like a Alola Muck or like this card was prized, so it's pretty fair to say that this card is a necessity for Pikarom to shine. But this card is just so crazy that people consider playing it in decks that require non-specific energy, so it has to be a really good card. And obviously, that's why it's in the list.
Yeah, 100%. We also play 2 copies of Dedenne. Not only is it going to give us consistency, but it's also searchable from our new Pokemon search card, Electromagnetic Radar. So we can grab a Dedenne and a Pikachu Zekrom, or even a Zeraora, and set our board up, which is an exciting prospect. Not only do we have Dedenne for consistency, but we're also, in our list, playing 3 copies of Jirachi. Jirachi with Stellar Wish means that you're not particularly concerned if your hand gets stamped down to a low number, which we now need to be concerned about. And we also have a bit of consistency to help us pick up those one-of item cards or those extra item cards that we need to be able to swing the matchup in our favour.
Or just to guarantee those turn 1 lilies now that Tapu Lele is not in the format.
Yeah, that is true. So, a couple of good support cards there. We are also playing 2 more Pokemon. One of them, you've mentioned already, that is Bench Barrier Mew. This card is busted now that it can't be removed from play, and it's not worth gusting. So as soon as you play your Mew down, you're pretty much going to be able to protect your field of play for as long as you choose to. And Psypower is actually an interesting attack as well. Not that it will really come up too much in this particular deck, but you never know. In niche situations, those 3 damage counters could be relevant.
It can come up if you make it come up. I mean, you can always work the math your way. If you're trying to get around like B-string turns and stuff like that, which will tend to come up in this format, I think, more and more, especially now that gusting is more rare. But funnily enough, Mew's attack Psypower is one of the few things in the game that currently gets around Bench Barrier, which is
that's true.
pretty ironic.
So you could potentially use it twice to knock out your opponent's Mew on the bench, but hey, probably not going to come up as often as you would like. Our final Pokemon is 1 copy of Resource Management Oranguru. It has the option to it has the ability to put 3 cards back into the deck, and when you have no other way of bringing things back from the discard, Oranguru seems like a good option. It also could potentially come up against Shedinja if that becomes a big deck in the Worlds format. I know lots of people have been talking about it, so it's definitely worth considering in almost anything that we play.
Yeah, everyone's going to be trying new ways to make other people unhappy now that there's a new format.
Yeah.
All the other decks that used to make people unhappy sort of fall into the wayside because stuff like Hooper is rotating, so and all the ways to discard energy like Plumeria and Skull Grunts and stuff like that are going away. Even the Hammers, I think, are pretty much all rotating, so yeah, people are looking for new ways to anger their opponents. So Shedinja seems to be the go-to. So Oranguru, just to make sure you have a better matchup there.
Yeah, you give yourself the option to bring those cards back if required, and it also has some niche uses in other matchups. Obviously, if you play Oranguru and your opponent doesn't, then you're not going to deck out, so you cannot complain about that. When it comes to our trainer line, we have our supporters first. The big one that we get to keep, Lily. We're going to be playing 4 copies of this card. We need to draw into it early doors so that we can draw 8 cards in the first turn, and having 4 copies means that is going to be easier to do.
And then we can play all of those, and then get all our energy in the discard, and then we can play a Dedenne, and then we can get all the energy switches, and then everything's all hunky-dory for a full blitz on the first turn still, like rotation.
Yeah, exactly. We should still be able to get into that first turn full blitz. Worst comes to worst, we also have 2 copies of Cynthia to help us shuffle our hand into our deck if required. Sometimes you do just have those kind of clunky and awful hands where we need to just put things back and try again, and Cynthia lets us do that.
Another card we're very thankful not to lose. When I heard it was Ultra Prism, I was thanking my lucky stars that was where they decided to start, because yeah, Cynthia's a godsend.
It's an exceptional card.
Especially when one of our main support Pokemon, now that Lele is gone, is Dedenne, which forces us to discard. So having the option to shuffle instead of discard it is really good.
Certainly is. It wouldn't be a Pikachu Zekrom deck without a couple of copies of Volkner. We're playing 2. It allows us to search our deck for any item card we like, as well as a Lightning Energy. Put them into our hand. This deck plays a lot of item cards, and a lot of them are very good for our particular deck, so it's definitely worth considering. Volkner's good in the early game because it gives you access to Dene through electromagnetic radar, and it is also really good in the late game because it helps you search for energy switch, which you'll sometimes need to get knockouts, or even finding your custom catches to help you gust out something on your opponent's side of the field. Very, very good card, Volkner.
Yeah, I mean, I think people have a little bit of the wrong idea of Volkner. Like, typically, sometimes you're just missing that one card, that one E-switch from your perfect turn with Pikarom, and sometimes Volkner helps you get there, but a lot of the times Volkner is the really aggressive card, because you can just grab Lightning and Electromagnetic Radar, like you said, and you can grab yourself a Zoror and a Dedenne, or a Pigazek and a Dedenne, and you can guaranteed put a Lightning in the discard for your Tapu Koko Prism, throw down the Dedenne, and put on the gas, and then suddenly you've got a new hand of 6 cards, and potentially have another chance at that full blitz that you thought you might not have had with a potentially slow-looking card in your hand like Volkner.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting because Electromagnetic Radar, which we'll talk about in a second, it gives you the option to do that, whereas Ultra Ball never did. So we get the chance to play Volkner to its maximum efficiency with those cards. We also play 1 copy of Brock's Grit, get to pull out the old Evolutions art there, Blake. Now we get to play that full art. It's actually good now.
Finally, the full art that we randomly pulled, I'm like, oh yeah, full art.
Yeah, it's got Brock on it, I guess.
It's finally going to see play, and it's finally going to be worth it.
Yeah, well, it's actually quite funny, because the only reason that it is worth it is because of all of our other energy and Pokemon recursion from the discard all rotates. No more Rescue Stretcher, so suddenly Brock is our best option. It's actually funny because of all the cards in the list. It's probably the one that you'd consider cutting first, because it's not as aggressive. It's a more safe card, and Pikachu Zekrom is traditionally quite an aggressive deck, but it's always good to be able to just chuck out Brock and keep those
hands where you have
together.
to Dene, like a whole bunch of stuff you'd rather not.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You only ever need 2 Lightning in the discard throughout the course of the entire game, because nothing else but Tapu Koko Prism synergizes with the discard. So once you get more than 2 Lightning in the discard, suddenly Brock's Grit starts to look pretty good, especially when your full blitzers aren't grabbing a full 3 energy.
And with Jirachi and all those big hands you're going to have from Lily and Dedenne, you're going to be able to find Brock's whenever you need it, and towards the end of the game, if you've got all the cards you need, you can always just chuck Brock's Grid down and shuffle in the things that you need to win the game. So it's not a bad option.
Also, for consideration, it's also another great tool against Stall, because this card plus Resource Management Oranguru allows you to shuffle in a lot of cards.
It certainly does. You're able to kind of mitigate the fact that you're losing a lot of resources trying to beat them by just putting them all back in and giving yourself the chance to win from there. Moving on to items now. These are the things that we're going to be able to pick up with our Volkners. We've got 3 copies of Electromagnetic Radar, if my camera will zoom in there.
There we go.
The light is awful bright, but that's okay. Electromagnetic Radar, only 3 copies. You'd expect to play 4, but with its ability to pick up 2 GX Pokemon that are Lightning typed, you only really need to play this once or maybe twice throughout a game. And the first turn is the critical one. If you can get Pikachu Zekrom, Zeraora, and Dedenne all in the first turn, then you are going to be set, and Electromagnetic Radar is going to be a great way to do that. I'll move that over there so you can actually see them.
I would definitely opt for Electromagnetic Radar if you are not running a variant that plays Jirachi, because Jirachi is one of the key parts to help help out the fact that you're only playing 3. You can get away with it a little bit because you have a way to search it out outside of Volkner as well.
Exactly. So, Electromagnetic Radar, a very, very good card. Probably the card that makes this deck actually work. Along with that, for Pokemon Search, we also have 4 copies of Pokemon Communication. Pokemon Communication is an exceptional card if you have lots of Pokemon. And Pikachu Zekrom's kind of on the cusp of having enough to make Pokecoms worth it. The reason that we're going to play this is because we have lots of basic Lightning or basic Pokemon that aren't GXs that we can't search with any other card. So, Tapu Koko Prism, we have to use Pokecoms to get it. There is no other way to find that Prism card, unless we play things like Lucia, which are equally difficult to find.
Yeah, without Tapu Lele, Lucia is not really an option. Jirachi doesn't have that good an option to find it. Pokemon Communication is really the only way to find those basic non-GXs anymore. So now lists are just chucking in more Pokemon and 4 Pokecoms to try and help find these really important non-GXs. Because it's like we said, this deck doesn't really work without Tapu Koko Prism, so it might be nice to have like a couple Pikarums down, a Zeraora, a bunch of Lightning in the discard, and throw down a Dedenne, but if you just don't draw into Tapu Koko Prism, the deck's just not going to work, so we have to play 4 copies of Pokecom to try and make this work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be tough to search, especially with all of our other cards in our deck designed to help us attack. We're going to find those Pokemon pretty quickly. Talking of cards that are designed to attack, this one here, when it came out, Custom Catcher, lots of conversations, but was never good enough. Because why would I play Custom Catcher when I could just play copies of Guzma? Well, Guzma does not exist anymore. Custom Catcher is the best way to find those gust effects for decks that aren't fire types. Obviously, fire types running the Ninetales as well. But yeah, I feel like, and I'm sure that other people will back me up on this, if you're playing a deck that doesn't have Gust, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to win games. So Custom Catcher, a vital inclusion.
Yeah, I mean, this deck can sometimes get away with it because obviously it has the option to tag bolt something that has run away, but with not a lot of Gust in the format, sometimes your opponent can just retreat and you can just sit there with like 10 damage off of knockout, worth 3 prizes, and you can just be like, oh, well, I'm never going to see those prizes again because it is now on the bench and he's not going to put it forward.
Yep,
so
it's just gone forever.
You just have to have the option. And Custom Catcher is the best neutral option for any deck.
That is true, and it's also important to remember that if you play one of them, you get to draw cards until you have 3. So not only is it a decent option for Gust, the best option that we have, but in a pinch it can also end up being a bit of a consistency draw card for you. Obviously you would rather not use that effect, but it is there if required.
I mean, especially if you get like reset stamp to 1 or 2 cards in the late game, Custom Catcher can help you draw some cards if you don't need the Gust to win the game. But out of all of these play 2 cards that we've gotten over the course of our history, like Puzzle of Time and Mixed Herbs and like Lucky Clover and all these sort of shenanigan cards, this definitely has the best 1 card effect out of all of those. So definitely not worried about drawing just the 1 copy of this because we still have a lot of options to discard our hands to a low amount, so we might be able to get use out of it even if we can't use it for Gust.
Even if we don't Gust, we've still got an effect that we can use. Exactly. Once we've got the energy on the field, we want to be able to move them around. Since Pikarom is able to put so many energy on the field, Energy Switch is going to be a big inclusion for us. We're running 4 of them. You could also consider playing things like Tag Switch. We've opted not to play that, because traditionally you want to move your energy to a Pikachu Zekrom rather than away from it. But the ability to do that is quite good, and if you wanted to play more than 4 Energy Switch, then Tag Switch would be the way to go. For us though, moving 1 basic energy from a Pokemon to another is probably going to be enough, so Energy Switch, an excellent inclusion for this particular deck.
Yeah, I mean, the only play that Tag Switch allows you to do that Energy Switch doesn't is it allows you to Full Blitz to another Pikachu Zekrom and then pretty much like guarantee that you're in a Tag Bolt off one of the other if one gets hurt. So that's like a nice little play that Tag Switch gives you, but I'd much rather have the extra deck space and the consistency of Tag 2 Full Blitz over access to that play.
Yeah, certainly. Energy Switch gives you that little bit of consistency of attacking that you need whilst not overcommitting too much. The other thing that we're going to need to attack is 4 copies of Electro Power. Obviously not required, but 150 is not a great number. Well, 180 is. Electro Power is going to be able to allow you to take knockouts with Full Blitz, and it's going to allow you to take big knockouts with Tag Bolt. Unfortunately, 270 is very hard to hit, but with Electro Power we might actually be able to get there.
I mean, it's one of the key reasons why one prize attackers are so important, because 270 is so very hard to hit now that Choice Band's gone. But we are one of the lucky few decks that have access to damage amplification still, so we are definitely going to exploit that as much as possible by playing 4 copies of Electro Power as we used to, so absolutely necessary.
Certainly is. And worse comes to worse, if our opponents do take a knockout on a Pikachu Zekrom, maybe they knock out our basic attacker that we've sent in to replace it, we always can play our 1 copy of Reset Stamp. This card will see play in every single deck at Worlds, because being able to disrupt your opponent's hand and punish them for being in front is incredibly important. It's funny as well, because obviously playing the whole season without a hand disruption card, the first time we get it back, outside of Let Loose, we actually get our ability to disrupt our opponent's hand to a very small number, exactly 1 year after we lost our last one. So N left in the last Worlds, and now we've got Stamp. We're back.
Yeah, I mean, people were so desperate to disrupt their opponent's large hand size towards the end of the game that they were playing low HP basics in a desperate attempt to brick their hands. The only upside to Let Loose that you don't really have with Reset Stamp is that it's not very effective at making your opponent draw dead early in the game, just late in the game, so I think that's a healthy thing, because it means your opponent gets to play the game before they lose to dead drawing. So
yeah, exactly. So they're not gonna
reset. Yeah, exactly.
They're not just gonna pick it up and lose.
Reset Stamp gives you that option to come back from nothing, really.
It certainly does. Moving on to our items that we attach to our Pokemon, we have 2 copies of a skateboard. Obviously, running Jirachi, we need to have a way to retreat. It's actually really interesting as well. You'd expect to see a lot more kind of tools to help move into Jirachis in decks. Moving from the past, you'd have things like Switch and Escape Rope. Obviously, Escape Rope rotates, but because we've got Zero Aura, we don't need to have too many Switch options. We're going to be able to get into Jirachi whenever we want to. And because Field Blower's gone, if we put an Escape Board down, as long as the Jirachi survives, we're probably going to stay on there for most of, if not all of, the game.
As long as our opponent's not playing Lysander Labs, that is probably the only tool disruption left in the format.
It certainly is. Now, we're not playing Lysander Labs, but we are playing 3 stadiums. One of them, quite obvious, not Tapu, I'm talking about Tapu Koko Prism. We're looking for Thunder Mountain Prism. We have the ability to use our Full Blitz attack for just 2 energy, which is going to make it a lot easier. As long as you find one of our Prism Stars in that early game, we're going to be able to get that first turn Full Blitz off, which is really exciting. And to go along with it, if we need to find energy, then we are going to be playing 2 copies of Viridian Forest. Discard a card and find an energy is pretty good, especially in the early game when you can discard an energy to find an energy and power up that Koko Prism.
Yeah, Viridian is like even more of premium of a card than it was before, because discarding cards from your hand is now even rarer than it used to be because of Ultra Ball leaving us. Now we have a reusable discard option that we've got to exploit as much as possible to try and get these lightnings in the discard for our Cocoa Prism.
We certainly do. Obviously, with Electromagnetic Radar, it's not as bad for us, but we still need to find a way to do it. So, Viridian Forest, a good option. Moving on to our final group of cards. That is our Lightning Energy. We're playing... Oh, it didn't work. 11. That's alright. It's fine. It's because they're old sleeves. We're playing 11... not Fighting Energy. What am I doing? I haven't done this for a very long time. We're playing 11 Lightning Energy. You don't have to play them mixed arts. I'm just choosing to, because they were the 11 Fire Energy. Just, you do it, Blake. You talk.
Mitch couldn't afford 11 gold lightning, so there's a couple mixed arts in there.
That's true. I'll just put this one on top. There you go. Boop.
That one's nice and shiny.
Certainly is.
That way.
11 is the...
11's a good count. It's probably the bare minimum, but it's a bit harder to find space for more as well, so 11's probably a really good number.
Exactly. It's not going to be too hard to find. 11 is probably high enough that you're going to get into them when you need them, but not so low that you cannot find them to discard in the early game. I'll put these three bad boys out on the field whilst we wrap it up, because these are our big Lightning GXs. I'll put this one in the middle, just for... Look at us go. If you're interested in playing the Worlds format, or if you're starting your testing for Washington DC, then this is probably the place to start. Pikachu Zekrom, a very powerful deck in our current format, and it's going to continue to be into the Worlds one as well.
Yeah, obviously it's going to be very strong, but also a tip for people building Worlds decks is start by looking for your favourite cards and then ripping them in half, and then you can start from there.
Yeah, exactly. So if you go, wow, I really wish I had a card that did this, there probably is one, you're just not allowed to use it. So forget about it and grab a crap card instead. It's probably better. Anyway, thanks Blake for coming along.
No worries.
And thanks everyone for watching. We're going to see these decks in action in the next couple of days, and the upcoming weeks we'll see lots and lots of gameplay from our Worlds format. But until then, if you like the content, then please subscribe by clicking the little Sableye in the middle of the screen. On the left hand side you'll have a video that YouTube thinks you might like. Maybe click on that and have a look. Or on the right hand side, this time we have our Worlds format testing playlist, so get in there and have a look. At the moment it's only one video, but if you're watching
it's very populated.
Yeah, but if you're watching it at all later on, then there'll be more. So thanks very much everyone for coming, and I hope you enjoy our Worlds testing. We'll see you all next time for more from the Sableyes. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.